So as soon as we're there. Wayne Duvenage is perhaps the highest profile leader of a community organization, and we're hearing more and more about how South Africans are pulling together in communities. So Wayne, it's and also from KwaZulu-Natal originally. I know that because I know what part of KwaZulu-Natal you're from. Having a look at the way communities have pulled together, particularly in our home province, it does appear as though something might have happened here.
Yeah, I think we do see this voluntary assistance in the mindset and the psyche of so many South Africans, and that comes to the fore in times of disaster and in need. We've seen it with the drought reliefs in the past. We've got some really good organizations like Gift to the Givers, but it's really very interesting to see how communities have mobilized themselves, and it's easier today with social media. But this spirit, this humanitarian spirit that comes to the fore so often is just so rewarding and so needed in times like this.
And yet often forgotten. We see a high degree of apathy amongst most population, not right now, and I'd like to explore that. But OUTA, from all the work that you've done, I'm sure you must have sometimes thought that there would be exponentially more people who'd be supporting the organization.
You know, we agree. I mean, we would love to have a lot more. I think that's a combination of learned apathy. You have this view that, well, that's great. We love the work, and we know people are supporting you. So yeah, that, you know, and then a lot of people don't know that we survive and need. We run on this crowdfunded model on public donations, and so as they learn that, and as they learn about the work we do, and not everybody knows about OUTA. Our supporter base grows, but it is tough. You know, we would expect it to be double, triple what it is, and yet, so we've got to work. We've got to keep working and keep telling our story.
Wayne, what are you hearing from your members on the ground in KwaZulu-Natal?
Well, it's it's chaos. It's devastating. The aftermath of this is going to live with them for a long time, and here as well. And in other parts of the country, because the supply lines are cut off, so the distribution and getting food to the markets, in and out of ports, it's closed down. So it's going to have a devastating impact on the economy, from fuel to food, infrastructure, and then rebuilding. This is going to take a long time, but maybe, you know, I was trying find the good out of this. Is nobody can really say, well, we needed this, but what will happen, and what has to happen, Alec, is that I sincerely believe this is the time to ask why and how did this happen. We understand there is a political agenda, that there was crime, but how do we prevent this from going forward? And I think we just look back, we can understand that since our new democracy, we really haven't paid attention to education, health, to safety, to poverty alleviation, to job creation, to closing the gap between rich and poor, this inequality that exists. And yet we had every potential to be a thriving, prosperous nation with everything that we have going for us. And our politics got in the way, looting got in the way, self-interest got in the way, and a system that is broken. And that, if we can take from this the journey forward to fix what is so fundamentally wrong, the electoral reform that is required, education, putting competence into government, and I think there's going to be a good road ahead, good growth, by the way, coming from this. But if we don't seize this opportunity to do that, then we will become.
But that's an interesting point. But what I'm getting more and more, and it's not just now since the rioting, but prior to the rioting, is that South Africans have seen the emperor's got no clothes,
Yeah.
and that they're now sick to death of it, and they are starting to make their own decisions and their own plans, particularly the Afrikaners, who have been in the forefront if you like, of the attack from the government, their schools, their universities, and so on. So the Afrikaners tell me they're 10 years ahead of the rest of South Africa, that they're putting together their communities. A little bit like the activism that you're busy with your community. People came behind you, they supported you, because at the time they saw that there was nothing that they could individually do about attacking corruption. But now, having had the emperor's clothes completely thrown away, at the time of need, the government was not there, could not be there to protect communities. There's an acceleration perhaps of this, that people are getting together, fending for themselves in collectives, and indeed perhaps working more on a local level. And I'd love to get your insights, your thoughts on that, given the experience that you have with OUTA.
Yes, no, absolutely. This does give rise to citizen-based leadership, and it does start to separate. Well, first of all, citizens understand their power a lot better, and then it starts to separate the state and communities. There's a lot of good in that, but there's also a lot of bad, because what happens is you pay your taxes, and yet you now have to start with your own security structures and your own, we've just seen this over time. I think if we unpack it, the government has just been too slow with its dominant single party that has not had the best interests of society. And we've had these 10 years with Zuma, and a realization, and Jacob and Cyril Ramaphosa coming on board, moving in the right trajectory, but having to play this game of chess with his party, and this catered deployment and the self-enrichment process that has been happening for so long, and trying to undo that. And I think he knows what he has to do. He has to be very careful. This might be the catalyst for him, but we're not seeing that leadership coming to the fore to say, this is what he's been talking about. And he's been talking about competent appointments now. Catered deployment is an issue. I mean, what is Gwede Mantashe doing in energy? He knows nothing about it. What is Fikile Mbalula doing in transport, and Becky Cele? These people should not be in these positions, and this might give him the time to shake that tree. The problem he has, he's got a party that might not want him there if he does that too rigorously. And then we have a problem, because heaven help us if David Mabuza, his deputy, gets into power, or Ace, or anybody else.
But aren't you missing the point here? The ANC, people don't give a damn about them anymore. Certainly people on the ground.
Yeah,
the communities that were shooting looters in their neighborhoods couldn't care about this government who never protected them. They couldn't care if Mbalula or whoever with a big mouth can get some senior government position. It appears that there's a catalyst that has occurred here, because what is the point of saying that you support a system which, when the chips are down, is missing in action? The president was missing in action, and there's no two ways of changing that. His speech that he brought out, Wayne, I don't know if it inspired you, but you would be the first.
It didn't inspire me. It lacked leadership. It lacked decisiveness, and a hard approach to dealing with this problem. I'm not saying that he's right. I'm just saying that we have a democracy, and the ANC is the majority party, still in power till 2024. Local elections are coming, and I think local elections are going to show the mettle of communities in society, because there's a difference between national and local, and it is in the local space that change has been happening for some time. A localized tax revolts taking over the running of the water systems, and that going to court, removing councils, and there's going to be a lot more of that. The local elections are going to tell us a lot, especially with this independent candidate movements and structures that are being set up. So the local elections, we believe, will be moved out a bit further. It gives time to really take from this learning and solidify that. So we'll get a lot of understanding of where this country is going to go politically at the local government elections. But we also have to have electoral reform, because the party list system and people electing people to represent them in parliament in constituencies, that is missing. That's what the electoral reform court case that ourselves and the New Nation movement went to court on, but they're dragging their feet. Now, coming back to the current situation, they're in power. Yes, people might not care, but they've got the purse strings, and they know now And I think Cyril knows, he's been knowing it for a while. He knows he has to move now with urgency to change things, because when we get government right, government for the people, then it's going to go well. Otherwise, we'll have government by the people for the people. And that's also starting to take shape. So organized civil society is becoming a reality in this country now. And we're about to launch our Community Action Network program that will take that to another level.
Tell us about it.
Well, it's realizing that civil society is structured in so many ways around the country, with resident associations, community associations, be it indigent or in affluent areas, business chambers, business forums, and yet when it comes to engaging with your local municipalities, having a look over their shoulder at their budgeting, their integrated development plans, and their mismanagement of funds, society has been missing. So they've got so much power, the law is in their favor, but they don't use it and they don't participate in the public engagement programs. So we're going to channel that. We're going to encourage it and empower citizens with the knowledge of what they should and can be doing, and then take best practice and start holding local government to account, to the extent that we remove them legally if need be, and start the legal processes of tax revolts. Now, I've got to be very careful with that word tax revolts, but taking the taxes away from the people who are abusing the money and putting where it should be, so that we can have good service delivery at a local government level. And that requires a network, which is what this is all about, this CAN network, this Community Action Network, so that we can share best practice and we can help communities empower themselves to hold local government to account. It's going to be a really exciting journey, and we'll be using specialists in finance, specialists in local law, to make sure that everybody gets the right information and does it properly. They'll be able to have membership, grow their membership, do the debit orders through their membership, have all they need to be constituted properly. So we help them constitute themselves, have their annual general meetings, do the good governance stuff, and grow. Because if you speak to a lot of these resident associations, their purpose is really just for a local security system, maybe. But organized communities need to go so much further to hold local government to account. Otherwise, we sit back and we moan about our municipalities collapsing and the potholes and everything. And we're saying, well, what can we do? Actually, there's a lot we can do and a lot you should be doing, but they don't know what they need to know. So that's what we're going to be doing.
The moment's arrived, Wayne, unquestionably. If you, family members of ours who live in KwaZulu-Natal are spending the nights protecting their suburbs. They've collectively got together, understanding that without this collective or activism or citizen activism, that they're sitting ducks for those who would just come and loot them. So once you begin that, once the genie's out of that bottle, once the apathy of the South African public has been removed, and people realize this is a very, very serious thing. And in KwaZulu-Natal, of course, it's hard to overemphasize how much of an impact that would have had. Then these structures that you're putting together to assist them in this, in taking back power, could hardly have been better timed.
Yeah, I wish it was ready. We've been working on it for a while. It's quite complex. I wish it was ready last month, but we're doing the beta testing now. But I think, Alec, what we're also doing with this, and this is very important, we saw it in Makana, where the indigent communities work with the residents. What we've got too much of a problem in this country is we've got people on this side of the railway track are not talking to that side of the railway track. People are living in their islands. They believe that, well, if our little community and our little suburb is safe and we're gated and everything, we're okay, Jack. But it's not the case, because the problem arises when people on the other side of town who don't even have running water or sewage system, but the sewage is flowing through their streets, and that we're not talking enough. We're not understanding that if together we can challenge our local municipality, together we become stronger, and not just go and fight the local municipality on the basis that my suburbs got potholes. Our municipality needs to be fixed, not our road. And that's the biggest, that divide, and you can see it coming out in all the protests, is not good for this country. And in Makana, where those two different communities understood that they have a joint responsibility to challenge a failing municipality and municipal system, that's when they won. That's when they won their court cases, and that's when they would be able to start to hold that local government to account. That's
You
what we
might
need.
be surprised at the way that this has galvanized a lot of
Exactly.
those relationships.
Exactly.
Gigi Alcock, who I spoke to yesterday, he's working on one of the policing forums, and he's been busy throughout the night in the north of Johannesburg. He said the Dipslit Residents Association are now working together with them and another association from around the, I think it's
Fantastic.
Olifants Hook or something. And this has been galvanized because if you have a common enemy and you realize that you are able to work together, you have to work together against the common enemy. When it's looting, it's in your face. When it's municipalities, it's like that boiling frog that we've been told so much about in South Africa. Well, it seems to me that maybe the frog has jumped out of the boiling pot of water, has realized it's got to take things into its own hands and start working towards a better future. Do you get that sense?
Yes, absolutely. And if, that's what I was saying earlier on. If the crisis is the catalyst for that type of energy and that type of galvanizing of society to work together at a grassroots level, then that must be the good that comes out of it. Every crisis has to give rise to some good, and this is what we see.